With every conversation, I become aware of letting the other person finish. I have been an incorrigible interrupter in this life. I want to be graceful and artful and loving. I don't even know I'm interrupting. Since I was a child, people have tried to communicate this to me. I can remember these times. But it was just the other day. I had the camera recording and someone came in. They were communicating something to me that was a little awkward, something weird about it from both sides, but it was totally all good, totally cool. He was explaining that side and I was just interrupting him, just completely interrupting him, saying, yeah, it's good, it's cool, oh, yeah. And listening to it, when I played it back, listening to it, I was embarrassed. I even wanted to call him and say, I'm sorry, I wasn't even letting him finish sentences, it seemed like. Well, from the inside, I didn't notice that I was doing that at all. I'm pretty quick-minded. I've misunderstood people in the past. But generally speaking, I understand people rapidly. I understand the feelings, the context, the motives, and the rhythm of the conversational dance. That rhythm of conversation. That is what I'm going to focus on. Together with consciously not interrupting people. Because sometimes people just talk on and on and on and on and on and on and on. To get rhythm with those people was tricky sometimes. And in the past, before today, for example, this guy today was going on and on and on and on and on and on in a certain way. And I was making a conscious effort to not interrupt. I think at one point I did interrupt consciously interrupted. But my unconscious, that I'm completely oblivious in conversation a lot of times to interrupt. Another time, I went up to the mountain with this female friend, singer, and I was playing guitar and she was singing, and in between that stuff there was some conversation. I was like a beta fish, the males, how they dominate the females like that. I wasn't trying to be dominant, but I was just interrupting every phrase. Every phrase I was interrupting. And I had no idea I had done that until I was listening to it. And as I listened to it, I thought, oh man, I thought about calling and apologizing to her. And both these people, it was completely unconscious. So I know I do this with everybody, basically. If I disagree with somebody, I don't let them go, oh, that's what it is. If I disagree with somebody, if I think they're wrong somehow, I just interject immediately. I am a total know-it-all. It's horrible. I'm a reformed know-it-all. I have to, because I need friends, and no one likes it. I wouldn't like it. Just listening to it, I'm thinking, I would square off it and stop myself. Like, stop. I'm remembering times where people would say something or do something to communicate with regards to that behavior of mine. So interesting to think about, because I was so oblivious. I think a big part of it is that I feel embarrassed or threatened with social shame or something like this. And I just want to get out of that locked position. I don't want to be caught in somebody else's dislike or antagonism or whatever. Or just be the bad person or whatever it is. The guilty party. Definitely taking criticism myself is... I would guess that I've done that quite a lot, taking criticism from people, because that's exactly the kind of place I would want to dodge or interrupt, because I hate being I hate being framed as something. You are this, you are that. I don't know if I feel like people are making a voodoo doll of me just by labeling me, or if I'm just such a disagreeer that no matter what they label me, I'm going to disagree with, and I don't want to be what I don't want to be, so I disagree with them because I'm disagreeing with them. The way the mind formulates things is sometimes not logical. Emotions play such a huge role. If I feel threatened or anxiety, I thought about this the other day, that's exactly a time where I'm going to practice non-interruption. Practice listening. Practice listening. I've heard it 100 times. Practice listening. I'm going to practice listening. There's nothing I can say that's going to be the final yes in life. I have my compass and my bearings, and it's not for me to change other people. So, there's this very unique set of circumstances. And this happened coincidentally with the video recording, where I interrupted somebody who was teaching drums to someone else. And they were my buddy. This is a person who doesn't play. I've played a lot of drums. This guy's a drum expert. I interrupted him, and he took such offense. The next day he sent me a text basically saying, you should grow up. You gotta learn these rhythms. You're like a guitarist playing the guitar upside down and backwards. And I basically don't want anything to do with you. But thanks for liking my drumming. He said, I mean that, thanks. I don't know if he was digging in, like sarcasm. I mean that. Like, wait, why would you say you mean it if you're saying it? Of course you mean it. Well, maybe it would sound sarcastic. It sounded sarcastic anyway. So, I like the guy. I would rather be his friend. But, coincidentally with that, somebody was trading a djembe on Craigslist. You know, it's djembe specifically that the guy was taking issue with the misplaying of. You misplay the djembe, it's an insult. You interrupt him instructing someone correctly on how to play the djembe by instructing them with how to incorrectly play. And it was all too much for that poor man to take. We're no longer friends. But we might be in the future. I hope so. So this interruption. Practice listening. Practice non-interruption. And in this instant, that was coincidental with the camera one, which alerted me to it, was this, anyway, I forget. It's all kind of come together, and I'm thankful. Oh yeah, uncomfortable, right. So, we're not friends right now. And it's a little bit awkward because I know, well, I'll most likely see him at a drum circle very, very soon. And I've learned some African rhythms. They're not that difficult. So I have a new djembe that I traded for some musical instruments, and I've learned some African rhythms. I'm going to show up after being, basically, you should be ashamed of yourself. You know, we're not friends anymore. He didn't say we're not friends anymore, but that's kind of what it was saying. We're not, I have nothing to do with you. Not interested in you. So I apologize very squarely. I mean, thanks for pointing this out. It makes perfect sense why you're upset. I wasn't even thinking. I apologize. And about the drum beats, I didn't specifically say that's what this was about, but I said thanks for pointing it out. Because no one had ever suggested learn some African djembe beats. The djembe was just a drum, and just a drum circle, and it's fun. What are you saying? No, those aren't just drums. Those are beats people are playing, and you're just thinking that it's spontaneous. Which is a little insulting, because a lot of it is spontaneous, I'm quite sure. But he makes a good point. And so I'm in this position of being shamed, but then not intentionally getting this drum because of that. But at the same time, in that window since I last saw him, I got this drum. It's a nice drum. And he makes a great point. Why not learn some beats? So I was watching some videos learning some beats. So now I had this new drum and I have these beats. And there's this awkwardness because he doesn't want anything to do with me. But I sent a very good apology. So he might want to accept that, but not want to lose face accepting it. Somehow, I think he needs me to ask him one more time, like, hey, don't throw away our friendship. I won't do it again. La la la. Because the funny thing is, a week before that, I had done a similar thing with a different drummer who was relatively new, but she had some experience from before. He walked away for, some minutes, and we were playing, and she said, oh, I haven't played with people in so many years. I said, oh yeah, well, feel relaxed. And I just showed her some stuff about the drum head, how there's the outside boom and the inside sounds, how that's a spectrum of sound. Well, proper djembe is that it's not a spectrum of sound. You got three. Three. But it's ludicrous because if you play the drum or you listen to it, those blend. The tone and the bass, they blend. And the bass has a mini spectrum, right? And the tone has a spectrum of tones, and they approach in some way. Anyway, so I was pointing out to her these things, that it's a spectrum of sound, and how it's just do 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 do, and if you go do 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 do, in sync is do 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 do, and that's pretty solid fast playing. Do 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 do. Now that's what this fellow hates, is the snare drum approach to the djembe. In fact, it really makes him mad. It's his pet peeve. If he could be said to have just one, that would rank. That would rank up there. The way that people play drums in drum circles, not like African beats or appreciating them even, but like a snare drum. But if you think about it, there's a lot. He's comparing it to guitar. And if you think about it, the blues came directly from guitar. Well, not. Blues guitar made use of an instrument that they didn't play it like classical Spanish players. They didn't prop up their foot one way like this and necessarily do it like that. They weren't using proper technique, but they had a legitimate expression through the medium. I haven't tried to explain that to him. I have, because it's really, it's a big part of his life, is this idea of, I would say he's a mini missionary. But he doesn't announce it, so that I cross fire with him. I think he could have been a little more formal if he was going to be the big teacher on the scene, not instead of a buddy hanging out at a drum circle showing someone. I did interrupt him though. I interrupted him, and he was insulted, and he put back some stuff that was approaching being insulting a little bit. Well, he was a little insulting in his text. But it was an emotional reaction, I'm quite sure, because he felt humiliated and disrespected and things like this. But the thing is, I'm a habitual interrupter. don't even know I'm doing it. And so I'm going to get over that. But a big part of not interrupting, and this is what I was getting at with this whole story, is that if I feel threatened or uncomfortable, I feel like I should make it right as quickly as possible. Just make it right real quick. But part of living a healthy adult life is being psychologically and emotionally sound in the midst of awkwardness, of dynamics. There's not necessarily a need to respond to social dynamics. My emotional well-being, my psychological well-being respond to social dynamics, but they don't have to respond to social dynamics. And so this event with this drummer, it's going to be nice. It's nice because I get a real juicy set of experiences that if I'm intentional, I can practice allowing myself to be happy and well-being and still have this interesting unresolved dynamic. So I feel real lucky. I really need to remember. And most of all, I need to remember to listen first.